All right, we just drove through North Carolina.
Is this our first ever in-person 5 mic?
I don't think so.
I think with the last time we did it, it was 4 mics,
And then someone online.
We shared a mic when that happened.
Yeah.
Like ever or since COVID?
Ever.
I think last time we had like an in-person like extra was like pre-Cork.
Maybe.
And then we only had like 3 working.
Oh, maybe.
And then we like the 4th one was broken, and so I think you and I shared a microphone.
I remember there was one time where we like simplified down to 2 mics, I think.
Yeah, I remember that. That was for a Discord call that we had to do.
Oh, sure.
You should do a call-in show.
Just who would call in?
We were joking about having a fake call-in show where we just like posted a link to the Discord, and that's where everyone called in, and then we kept on like vaguely referring to like, yeah, just call us in, but never actually saying a number, but still somehow getting calls.
It'd be like that bit in like Mr. Show, I think it is, or it's
Right,
like the
where it's
call-in show.
the pre-taped call-in show.
Call-in
No, that was last week's subject. For the love of God.
It's Alex!
Well, it's episode 286 of View from 202, and special times call for special measures. We've brought in emergency 5th mic, all cylinders firing here, and we have brought in Alex. Is that what you want to be identified as on this podcast, or do you want a pseudonym?
I'll take a pseudonym if you want to give me one.
We've already released his full name
to the public.
at this point.
alexjs85 is now on our podcast once again.
485.
I like how that's the headline of the episode and not that we were in the cup final.
Yeah,
That's
of
the cup
course.
final review.
Well, your Twitter handle actually has far more biographical information.
Your name.
Just saying
Very
your
true.
name.
Yeah,
What does
doxing.
485 mean? Is there like a numeral? Is there symbolism? Is there
Like
an
my
MO?
birthday.
Or something?
My birthday.
Well,
It's not a 4.
is there a conspiracy?
Yeah, there's a deep conspiracy.
About 85.
Yeah.
I'm aging myself, literally.
This is our post MLS Cup episode.
Not our first December episode, but perhaps the first.
Well, yeah, I mean, we usually do an off-season episode.
Well, yeah,
in
that's
December.
what I was getting into something. Okay, I was saying not our first December episode, but perhaps the first ever live 5 mic RBNY podcast.
Is that
Question
true?
mark?
I don't know.
Perhaps.
I think Metro Fan TV must have had like a 12-person ensemble at one point. And in spirit, we
But
know
only
that
one mic.
Maybe, yeah. Energy Drink Soccer Show has a mic in all of our hearts at all times. So how can you even count that? But yeah, this is our post-Cup episode, and we figured we might as well, for a change, have one person who was at the match actually comment on the match. So unusual for the 2024 season of View from 202. But here we are. It's 5 of us this time. And off to a rocky start. I ordered the wrong kind of pizza. I was befuddled by the Jets menu. Who knew it could be so complicated?
Lucky we even still have a guest to fucking have on the show.
I know.
That foible.
Honestly.
But
Like, what a grievous faux pas.
We had Alex had in his rider that he only wanted square slices.
Yeah.
And yet
I require a certain number of corners, like they require green M&Ms only.
Yeah, this is what I get for making ChatGPT read the writer for me. I get circular Detroit-style pizza. But welcome back to the country, because you were in a foreign league last weekend.
Land. Yes.
And
you live in the foreign land, Manhattan.
I mean,
so do I.
Yeah.
I've been the suburban voice
You're
on
the-
the show for a while now.
You're the super commuter.
Yeah.
very true.
Yeah, I had to get my passport checked at the airport and at the stadium to make sure I could get in coming from a foreign country.
That might be the case very soon.
Yeah. How was it? How was it to be in Los Angeles in beautiful Torrance?
In Torrance, yeah.
Wow.
I was
The
telling
city of
everybody.
Angeles.
I was telling everybody on the drive from the hotel we were staying at in Torrance to Carson, looking out at all the houses, every single one of them reminded me of the house where John Connor's foster parents get murdered at in Terminator 2. Just like getting I imagine in one of those little houses, someone's getting a spike through their milk carton and their head.
Well, thanks to the California tax property system, it probably is all the exact same house.
Yeah,
there's
it
probably
all
been no
looked exactly
construction
like-
there. So that's the analysis you
What
can
do you think
use
came
this episode
first?
for.
Do you think the idea of getting, offed like that, or the movie?
It was literally the quality of light of that place just
brings
put me
you-
into Terminator 2 zone. But yeah, it was really nice. I mean, perfect weather for MLS Cup. Like, couldn't have asked for anything more. And yeah, it wasn't like, it was probably one of the most spontaneous things I've ever done in my life to do it, and it was kind of fun to have.
Yeah,
actually
we were
have
not
done it.
nearly spontaneous.
Yeah,
as
this
much
is
as
definitely
you.
out of character, like me who plans like things down to the minute to go out there and do this. But it was
Did you
definitely-
receive any of the help to get over there?
help? Meaning
Stipend, etc.
Oh no! I think that was only to supporters groups. And I was talking with somebody. It makes sense because they have to bring their like flags and trombones and whatnot. Maybe it
okay.
makes sense to have like over
Well,
size
like
luggage.
pay extra cargo and stuff.
Yeah. But no, I did it on my own accord. I did get the ticket though. But then, it was annoying because I booked everything like refundable just in case I didn't get the ticket. And so I kept calling my ticket rep being like, am I going to get the ticket?
And you
Am I
got it through the
getting
red member.
I got it through the red member.
Did you call and whisper it like that?
Yeah, I did. I was
Did
like,
you leave voicemails like that?
Vaguely threatening.
So I kept on calling. He's like, so my rep would be like, I can't tell you exactly, but if you requested one, you'll probably get one. And so I kept on being like, okay, I probably will.
But you
get
needed
it.
two.
I needed to. Yeah. Well,
That's
that's why I
why-
didn't do the ESC one because I'm also a member at ESC, but I didn't do it because there was only
Guaranteed one.
only guaranteed one, and I needed two. So-
Typical radical leftist anti-family policy.
Yeah,
by,
man. Yeah,
by
exactly.
Empire Supporters Club.
Exactly.
Yeah, you had to
Unbelievable.
leave your 8 kids at home.
Exactly.
And it's just, and that's only because you didn't understand that you could have gotten a second ticket, perhaps.
Well, there was a caveat that like.
You have to wait.
Well, it was
and
like
see.
very.
You
The
have to be in a
email-
situationship to get a second ticket.
Exactly. I'm too committed.
Only thruples can go to
Yeah,
MLS Cup.
exactly. There was a caveat that was like, I should say, throughout the email that went out to ESC, it was like very clear. It's like we're only giving tickets to memberships, like period. And then at the very bottom, there's like maybe if we have enough tickets, we'll give it out to your friends or whatever. But then, and then obviously it happened. And then as soon as they started distributing the tickets, which is like a day or two before the Rev members found out, they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll give it to whoever wants it." So I was like, "Okay, I could have probably just done it through that."
So you could have
but-
saved $600 or something.
Or I could have, I could have
Yeah.
gotten $600. Or maybe it would have only been for my membership. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, whatever, it's fine.
You ended up going to get to see a game in LA.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, was this your first time at Home Depot Center?
It
as I
was
still
my
call
first
it?
time at the Home
StubHub
Depot
Hub
Center.
A StubHub Center.
The StubHub Center.
Well, it's something
yeah.
new now, I think, right?
Yeah, Dignity Health
Dignity Health.
Sports Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my first
Oh,
time
there are
there.
20 parks in
There
MLS
are,
now.
yeah. Although this one did feel like most park-like in the
Yeah.
sense that it
Because
is
it has that like big
grassy
berm,
knoll.
like,
It
It
yeah.
has a berm. Yeah, there was a berm. There were a couple of people in the berm when we were there.
Hey, I was surprised there wasn't more. I would
Yeah,
have
it
thought that
was
maybe
like
there
that's
was-
like standing room only.
Apparently,
Yeah.
those
Open
tickets
that all up.
went on sale the latest of all the
Oh,
tickets.
really?
I
Yeah,
think.
it was definitely sparse, the berm. Sparsely bermed.
I would have gotten a berm seat.
Yeah, it was in the sun, though. It was directly in the sun for the entire
They
match.
should have put the away section on the berm.
It's actually
Just
kind
out
of
getting baked.
it's actually kind of funny because I'd heard before that's like, oh, the away section at LA is like in the sun, but the game was so freaking early that we were actually in the shade for the entire match because the sun was like obviously on the opposite side because it was like the match started at like 1:00, and only at the like when the final whistle blew was actually the sun starting to be in our faces. But yeah.
So you had to get there. You mentioned this real early. What was
I
that
got
like?
there. It was bizarre, but people were cranked in the parking lot already when I got there.
Everyone
like,
was on East Coast time.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, yeah, everyone was like out of their minds in the parking lot already. So yeah, it was weird. It was weird. It was like waking up at like, I woke up at like 5:30 or something because I was still on like New York time, because that for me that would be like 9 o'clock.
Did you get like a breakfast taco or something?
No, we stupidly paid. There was like nothing. So we stayed in the Sonesta suite, which was like where all ESC and everybody was staying, and there was like nothing around. It was just like literally right off you drive off the 405 and you're like in the hotel.
Was it closer to food options or further to food options than that
DC
DC Navy Yard hotel?
So we had to walk all the way to the National Stadium to get Cold Stone.
Well, you say we, but it was just me.
Well, were you for bagels?
Yes. No, it was definitely, there was like one place nearby, and it was like a combination Chick-fil-A, Shake Shack, and Panera Bread. But we didn't.
Classic California food
very,
options.
very classic California. But we didn't even do that. We just paid. We paid like $30 for like the breakfast at the hotel.
Sonesta,
and it was crap.
they didn't even have like continental.
Yeah, they
included.
didn't have like,
It's not a Hampton Inn.
No, none of that.
I'm realizing I probably stayed at that same hotel you guys stayed at near DC United in the food desert. Like years
We stayed in an
later.
Airbnb.
Oh,
Yeah,
excuse me.
Airbnb.
Sorry, that's just the only place you can stay.
I mean, it was
clearly.
practically a hotel though. It was
it seemed
was
like a place that was like mostly just
only
Airbnbs.
Only Airbnb. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was really nice. It was fun.
Did people keep the energy up?
Oh yeah.
Even though it was like you had to get there like 3 hours early.
Yeah, the march was. When everyone's in the parking lot, everyone was like pretty excited, but it was relaxed. It was like kind of a fun atmosphere. No one was really nervous.
I mean, yeah, you said spontaneous, but literally everyone had to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody was planning trips to like, Orlando or even Queens,
Right,
2
right.
months ago. So,
Yeah. So it was a good atmosphere.
Everybody was just probably felt like they.
It was just like a bonus vacation,
Right,
or something. It was like a
exactly.
snow day, or something,
But
It was
in
like-
LA.
But in LA, and it was a soccer game, so no one was really like. Everyone was totally relaxed. Everyone was like, "Yeah, I don't even really care what happens. This is just kind of fun," and so that kind of carried through the entire like
That house money
match,
feeling.
Yeah, house money feeling. Yeah. So it was nice.
Does the stadium have like a statue of Landon Donovan or anything like that, or is it just sort of
Robbie Keane.
No,
Yeah.
don't they have a Beckham statue? I didn't see it though.
Maybe.
We were
That'd be
kind of
awkward.
We were kind of like really just fun. We did a march. So they set us up in this parking lot, and that's where also you had a view of all the houses of Carson / Torrance, and it was just like the Terminator 2 vibe. Just it was overwhelming. But then we had our march. And they just basically funneled us into the stadium. We didn't even really see anything, but the stadium was really nice. It's like has this huge concourse kind of park thing that you're walking around in and then it kind of just seamlessly goes into the seats. It's like very cool. It has kind of like this amphitheater kind of feeling.
That's like a 20-year-old stadium now.
Yeah,
it still looks nice.
It felt like modern just because of how like integrated it all is with the landscape.
I guess they were playing NFL games there a couple years ago.
Oh, right, yeah.
And maybe they've reinvested more into it. I don't know.
Well, and they also, I mean, like it used to be literally like the USSF technical headquarters were at that center too.
Yeah.
Like around the training facility and stuff, but that's over. But then they also have like a cycling velodrome and stuff too.
That's
like,
where we were told.
It's got a lot of like little like offshoot Olympic training things at it, I think.
Yeah, like that. A bunch of people like you had to put velodrome into the cab into your ride app.
Yeah.
To get to the parking lot we were sequestered in. But
that feels very Michael Mann to me somehow as well. Just like
velodrome.
Yeah, like movie starts and like Robert De Niro is walking onto a LA Metro train that gets off at Velodrome and like
Right.
shoots someone at the Velodrome.
Yeah.
And then the helicopters come in.
And then there's like a racing scene in the velodrome, like
Yeah.
Ferrari or something, and huge crash.
And you assume, you're like, oh, that was like sort of a weird set idea they make, and then you Google it and you're like, oh no, there's actually 3 like 20,000 seat capacity velodromes in LA.
This is all to say that Galaxy are the authentic LA club as
for
opposed
sure.
to LAFC.
For sure. Yeah. Because I've also been to an LAFC game. I went to one a few years ago when I was at LA. And it's like, yeah, like Carson, that's definitely like.
I remember at the time you were
spot.
quite keen on your LAFC
I
experience.
did like LAFC. No,
Yeah.
I really liked LAFC. It was a nice stadium. But yeah, like going to a Galaxy game was definitely like going to like the OG LA soccer experience.
But are you like? Would you say you prefer Waluigi or Luigi?
But definitely Luigi.
Yeah.
Definitely Luigi now
The
that I've done
heritage,
it.
yeah, OGs.
Definitely
OG
now that I've
state of
done it.
Now, unfortunately, this episode's being recorded during a week where we might have to be a little more clear about Luigi we're referring to.
Forgot about.
Yeah.
You can't just throw that name off casually like everyone understands what it is anymore. As of the last 4 days.
Personally, I've been thinking about the View from 202 blog post constantly for the last week. We did mention it on last week's episode, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
And to all of our
my
listeners
God, what
right
do we
now,
know?
I want to say that our message to you is to be normal. The most important thing you can do if you have View from 202 in your listening history and your app of choice is to continue being the most normal person.
If you've ever
in all of
added
your lives.
the Twitter account, please never do anything not normal.
Yeah,
If
that
you've
is your
ever been
mission.
in any of our mentions, please be normal.
No murders, no manslaughters, nothing.
Targeted hits.
But yes, of course, the analogy Peaches is referring to is none other than Alex's own work.
Yes.
That
Seminal.
yeah.
The foundational
made the
text.
analogy of all the Mario characters, which cast us as Mario and the Galaxy's Luigi.
Never have I felt that was more true than after this match.
Yeah?
Yeah. That it was like, okay.
Including Luigi stunting on Mario.
Including, I mean, like, it was like
Sunning Mario.
seeing like Landon come out and be like the guy in like starting the like leading off in the match and like
The MC.
after Joveljic scored the second goal, like him doing the Robbie Keane celebration, and then also like kind of like the actual Galaxy supporters having, you know, like their jerseys from like 20 years ago also, like it was like, okay, I like respect them. For
Galaxy
sure.
still is. I mean, like obviously, Inter Miami have the news by the rope or whatever, but LA Galaxy is still one of those teams that
That's
everyone
the
knows.
biggest club in MLS.
Yeah,
like
by
people
far.
know LA
Like-
And
Galaxy.
dare I say, you know, maybe we're skipping ahead in the podcast. Dare I say, it almost feels that way a little bit about the Red Bulls making it this far in the Cup, where like all of a sudden it feels like, oh yeah, there's low key a lot of latent Red Bulls fans just
Right.
around, or Metro Stars fans, and you
Yeah.
kind of got that feeling from this. And from a distance, it felt like there was like a lot of mutual respect
Oh,
between
yeah, for
like the
sure.
Galaxy fans and
Like before, after the game, you know, there's a lot of like, just if you crossed like a Galaxy fan in the parking lot on the way back after the game or before the game, it was like just dapping up and like just normal, being normal.
Good game. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like this is fun kind of thing.
That's what happens when you play a friendly against a different league team.
Yeah.
Yeah. nice little holiday send off.
Right. This is like
Community Shield.
Intertoto Cup.
yeah. Yeah, I think I heard somebody say that like someone yelled, "Fuck you, Metro Stars," and then they turned around, the guy was smiling and he just did a thumbs up back. It's like,
Yeah,
let's
actually,
go.
like all there was like a lot of fuck. There was like a couple of fuck LA chants that tried to get off, and it was almost kind of like really, like I don't know.
We're the
Nobody
two.
cared.
Yeah, we're the two cities. Everyone else cares about.
Yeah, exactly.
I did hear that on the broadcast pretty clearly.
Oh yeah.
But
You guys were very clear on the broadcast, but I do want to ask you about like the people who were there because you know like
what's their deal?
Who are they?
well we well, I was gonna just bring up like we often obviously malign the official New York Red Bulls Discord server where you're a villain.
Oh yeah.
But you ended up meeting a
I
lot
want to correct the issue of that. I malign the concept of being in the Discord. I've never been in that Discord.
Right, I'm the only one there.
Yes.
Yeah. But you ended up kind of like having like a little meetup there a little bit.
Oh
right?
yeah, I met a bunch of people in that. Yeah, it was fun. It was like kind of like everybody just kind of having a blast together.
like people.
bygones.
Well, it was like to me, it seemed like when you guys shared the pictures of everyone together, you're like, oh, the internet friends are meeting a little bit.
There was a little bit of
Yeah.
internet friend meetup. Yeah, so it was kind of fun. It was like a reunion almost.
Well, because I wanted to contrast that to like what our experience was, because at Legends, where there were so many people at Legends. And it seemed like it was just, like we were saying, an amalgamation of New York Red Bulls fans over decades and decades. And you can kind of see all the people a little bit, but like you could kind of see all the people like, oh, this kind of looks like when they started watching the team because they have the jersey from when they were most into it from different years, like 2013 or 2017. And like there was a very, it's like you were saying too, like everyone at the bar pretty much was like, oh, chill about the fact that we were at the final. That everyone kind of had like a base level of like, oh, we shouldn't really even be here. I'm just glad to be here kind of feeling. And it felt like nice to have a respectable like
showing
fan base that understands what's really going on here.
like the context.
Yeah, because like I think, you know, we all saw what like official city account was posting on that
We
day.
actually didn't. The official account got in on.
They were posting the picture of the star above their crest or whatever on that day.
And they're just like, how's everyone's weekend
Yeah,
going? It's like, fine,
I was like,
actually, I'm
that
in
was
Los
fun.
Angeles.
Yeah, it was fun. Which I think is like, I really appreciated that about our club, is that being an original 96 club means that you kind of do maybe have that, especially being like the New York Metro Stars.
Yeah. I will. Yeah. Speaking of the online presence and City getting in, that reminds me that the week leading up to MLS Cup, I found myself getting into it. And then I realized like all the promo material that I was watching was just being made by not MLS clubs. It was being made by Fox. And I was like, maybe that's why this all feels like a little bit more major league and like a little bit less like hokey.
Yeah.
But because, you know, if you leave it to the individual clubs, they're increasingly more like the stuff we complain about or that NYCFC post. And I will also mention it, like Cork and I have been sort of complaining about some of the Mets posts after signing Juan Soto, where like increasingly every single individual team account that posts something, I'm like, can you like log off a little bit? Can you like go outside?
Are you talking about the Timothy Chalamet thing that the Mets posted?
Oh, yeah, that was like log off a little bit and then like referencing like particular like random tweets,
random
that, like,
little like
troll
troll haters and stuff, and it's just like, can you please just post the news?
Put on your big boy pants.
Can you just like?
We're supposed to be the ones doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Leave it to the fans.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't have to. Yeah, jump on our.
We got too much to talk about to get bogged down.
It's just like it's been like 3 weeks since we complained about the social media, so I thought we'd at least get that in there.
We got to get back to our form.
Yeah, but speaking of the game itself, I guess at this point, at what point in the stands did you hear that Andres Reyes was no longer playing?
Oh my God! Like when they were walking out. To be honest, I wasn't checking my phone that much because like
Loser.
It was just like I didn't really have much reception and whatnot. But yeah, it was like kind of like just rumbling around. I was sitting next to our mutual friend Profe and our mutual friend Sean and some other people, and just they kind of heard rumblings about it. And then literally as the team was walking out, it was like, oh, there's no Reyes.
I'm disappointed that Profe wasn't the first person contacted.
They just called him up from the locker room. Yeah.
On his country.
Yeah, but it was very weird. Like first people were just like, oh, did he get injured in warm-ups? And then it was like sickness, like some sort of illness. And I was saying to Profe, I was like, he better have like some terminal disease. Just literally been diagnosed like in the locker room as having like,
I have a disease
ALS.
so rare that they named it after me.
Yeah, exactly.
Lucky me.
Exactly. So it was just very weird. Have we even heard like what happened to him?
He got traded.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Apparently he was
trade-itis.
Apparently he was vomiting before kickoff. I guess
because he was like, we saw him in the warm-ups and like they put him on the screen and stuff, and like he had dyed his hair silver, and he no longer was bearded. He was goateed. And he was just running around like everybody else. And it was like really weird.
I mean, it was clear where it happened. He shouldn't have shaved.
Yeah, exactly. He's Samson something. But yeah, it was bizarre.
On the broadcast, they were saying that he had been feeling sick all morning and that I guess just game time, he decided he couldn't go.
Yeah, I didn't want to risk it.
But
We've been there with like Sunday league games and stuff. We're had a long night before, and we're just kind of like, I'll see how I feel when I get to the park or whatever. And then it's like, oh shit, like,
Yeah.
I should not be running.
Speak for
90
yourself.
minutes.
I'm a professional.
Yeah.
Well,
He had
okay.
A Del Taco or something.
I've had a few games where I'm like, either this is going to make me feel great or I'm going to die, and it's
Yeah.
going to be solved either way. There is no in between.
Yeah.
But maybe he was just diagnosed with tuberculosis, and that's why he has to stay in Southern California now.
That's true. Yeah. In a sanatorium.
Yeah,
It's like a Thomas Mann
1907.
novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Road to Wellness style.
yeah. It's too bad Phoenix Rising hasn't gotten promoted yet. But well, okay. After, of course, Andres Reyes gets subbed out, there was a pretty rough opening 12 minutes
Yeah.
for the team. What was the vibe in the stands during the bad start to this game like?
Honestly, I think everyone kind of expected us to get slaughtered. Like,
Even before the game.
no.
You mean like after the first couple
after
goals?
the first couple of minutes. Yeah, after the first goal, there was another, and then I think literally the next chance they had was the Joveljic chance, and the stadium was just going nuts after the Joveljic goal, and I think, I think people were just expecting us to just get creamed, like City 5-1 style, like. I think people were thinking that the moment was like too big for the team as it is right now, you know?
Yeah.
And like this Galaxy team is just full of just pros. Like you could see Paintsill, Peck, and Joveljic, and that midfield were just like well-oiled machine.
Yeah, without Puig.
Without Puig.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just the matchups at those first 20 minutes were just so bad, went so poorly for us. Like, I think that Dylan Niels hadn't figured out how to match up with Paintsill yet. And
Or to match up with Isla.
oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it just looked really bad. It looked really bad.
I remember before the game, I turned to Cork and Sam, who were at Legends with me, and I just remember saying, like, regardless of how this goes, I hope it's like a definitive win for the team who wins.
yeah.
And like, I was almost a little relieved when like I saw the first few minutes play out, and it was like, okay, we're just gonna get outclassed by LA.
It's not going to feel like another like just crapshoot MLS, like regular season MLS game.
Exactly. It's like, okay, we just got beat to death by hammers. It's fine.
And it's almost
like,
as if like too, it was a feeling of like, yeah, we're gonna get creamed, but also like kind of like it happened so fast. Like it was just such a gut punch at the beginning. It was kind of like there was this, at least where I was sitting, this kind of like funny kind of resignation to the fact. It's just like, oh well, you know what? It's a nice day out. Right. You know, like it was kind of still, even still, it was kind of, I feel like the euphoria of just being there hadn't left entirely yet. Maybe if we hadn't got one back, or maybe if they actually laid the hammer down on us, that feeling would have gone away. But I don't even know if it would have. I think people were
just there to be there.
such a good mood that it was like impossible to like wave that, you know, to get that out of the system.
Part of me was a little disappointed that they put two on us so quickly, like, you know, almost before the game could properly
Even
start.
started.
You
Yeah,
know,
it
like,
did feel like literally the game hadn't even started yet because it just, it
the
was.
team was all out of sorts. Like Twelman on the broadcast was speculating that like the late change may have made Schwarz say like, okay, don't go full throttle, just like grow into the game, because like Isla's going in like semi cold, and that seems like a likely explanation.
I think so.
Which leads me to believe that we're still in the long 2018, never escaped it.
Oh my god!
But no, I mean it's like a tough situation. On the one hand, I don't know. I guess we're still unclear on some of the details, because if it's true that Reyes was sick all morning, then Isla should have had a clue that he could have gotten in. That said, if Reyes was really like up to like the final lineup and he gets pulled out, like there's only so much you can do at that point.
Yeah, he was literally in the warm-ups. Like he was out there. We saw him on the video. And I even think it's like, it was weird because there was like those goals, it was just straight up the gut. Like it wasn't even, it was like literally not even just kind of like, oh, Isle
Playing
himself.
angles around the middle and or around the outside and stuff like that.
and
They're
like-
just like north-south passes.
Exactly.
Well,
It wasn't
the
like
spacing was all off.
The spacing was all. That's true. The spacing was all off, but it was like a total team breakdown in a lot of respects. It wasn't just like Isle like losing his mark because he hadn't like read up.
Right.
on
It wasn't
how-
anybody getting isolated and like
No.
one-on-one or anything.
Yeah.
It was just them sliding the ball past
Right.
all our lines.
And, like Twellman's theory seems actually very likely to me because it felt like maybe Schwartz had to last minute say like, hey, do this instead. And different guys on the squad interpret that to different levels.
Yeah.
Because like Forsberg was still pushing up and like at the tip of the press.
Yeah.
And Stroud and Edelman were like kind of bunched further back, and there was a huge amount of space
was a
between the
huge
two.
hole in the
and then there
middle.
was a huge amount of space between. I think Stroud was more on the right side, Stroud and Harper, because even in the moments where like we had the ball and we're trying to advance it, there are a couple of moments where Harper and Stroud were trying to combine, and it just like felt like both of them were 5 yards further from each other than they expected, and they had to like stop and wait for them to get closer to each other.
I don't know the exact, and I might even be completely wrong. And it's hard to tell, especially because there's been changes at RBA the last few years with like Struber changing the dimensions and stuff like that. But I feel like Home Depot Center has reputation as like a pretty big field.
It did feel
and
big.
Looks big on TV, and I
Yeah.
think like, it's kind of like conventional wisdom that it's like a big field,
think
and
it-
on paper a big field.
I'm not, we were seated kind of almost at midfield. They were actually really like conventionally nice seats, but I do enjoy sitting at the end lines, the tactical view. So I couldn't do a direct comparison with my view of RBA.
From
but
202?
Yeah, from 202, literally my view from 202. But it looks bigger. It feels bigger. It plays bigger too. Just like it's harder, I feel like, probably for them to like mark in our setup. There are bigger gaps. Like that goal, the Paintsel goal, I think it is, where Surreal just breaks through the middle like easily. It felt like there were just like huge gaps everywhere that were exacerbated by the size of the pitch. So.
I also felt like maybe the size threw us off because it felt like a lot of our defenders were just doing clearances, just getting it out, getting it away. It wasn't going as far as they thought. Meanwhile, LA was being extremely efficient, and when they first timed it to get out of pressure on that first goal, and like I think the second one was similar, where like they didn't have to take a gathering touch and then pivot and find space. They knew exactly where it was.
Yeah.
We talked about kind of like how the defense and might have been awry because of the center backs being switched or whatever. But I like particularly noticed how unprogressive Edelman and Stroud were that game. And like, I know they weren't like Carbaggio, I guess, was the typical pairing.
Yeah,
with
what, you
Edelman.
want Carbaggio back? You want your
I mean,
your
like,
boogeyman?
If it's going to play like this, maybe. But I mean, to me, there was a noticeable difference when Doncor came on in terms of like
for sure.
like how we were moving up and progressing together.
He was like the only progressive midfielder when he came on, like that we were playing. I mean, it just felt like they had more. I mean, they did. They just felt like they had more guys in the midfield,
So the team did eventually get it together, obviously. Even before they scored the goal, though, it felt like there was sort of an equilibrium that was reached. I mean, LA hit the post on another chance, and I think they had another sort of scramble in the box. And that feels like sort of an early inflection point where the game could have really gone for the worst. Yeah. And I would have been like actually pretty disappointed by that, even though it is house money. Like it would have been, I don't know, not like a failure.
It would have probably like canceled out any like
goodwill.
Kind of like the regaining of club dignity that's come out of this whole run. That would have really put a blanket on some of that.
Right.
So.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I think, well, I remember specifically when we got to this 2-0, I had been for days just kind of like beating myself up whether or not like it was worth it or not to have gone to MLS Cup. And as soon as I saw those 2 goals, I was almost relieved.
I had that mentality that you had, but then after a little while, I think it was like after a couple missed chances, it was like, I really don't want it to like just be a big blowout.
No, right. And then I think like once we scored, I was like, okay, this is fine. This is acceptable. But like I even if it was 2-0, I think it would have been like a pretty almost. I consider what happened a very satisfying result.
Interesting, because I was about to say that I assume neutrals were disappointed by this.
Right.
Just in the fact that it was 3 goals in 30 minutes and then nothing.
Yeah.
You don't have anything in the second half. You don't really have a clear match winner. That would have been... obviously it would have been cathartic if we won. Although maybe on the flip side, maybe it's sort of nice that we don't have like a late LA match winner that gets inaugurated into the curse
The pantheon
stuff, for the cynics, to seize on. Because it seems like the takeaway from this pretty much universally is everyone said we just got beaten by a better team. Also, it's kind of nice that the Galaxy are a better team again instead of the weird wilderness that they've been in.
Yeah.
And I think it also serves as a good counter example of what both spending and being smart about building a team look like. The Galaxy, like we were saying last week,
they were churning through all these what are frequently framed as the A-list signings that you want in MLS, but was not doing anything for them.
Right. And not even bringing more
Chicharito
eyeballs.
And Zlatan and Dos Santos brothers and just
And I don't know if you can even quantify it at this point. You probably can't quantify it. But at this point, after this game, it almost feels like the more valuable legacy of the Galaxy and what makes them a big team is Landon Donovan and to a lesser extent Robbie Keane and obviously Beckham too. There's no getting around Beckham. But having that 25-year-old history now.
Yeah, and having a continuous thread through it. I think that's something that in a lot of recent eras of RBNY they've struggled with. Yeah. And then sometimes they and the other end of it is sometimes they overdo the gestures because they're conscious of it. And I think, for the Galaxy to just have it be totally normal that, Landon Donovan is kind of the mascot and just kind of the icon and just, sort of, conduit for everything else that flows through the club culture. That's an important thing. And
it was really cool to see him.
Right.
Yeah. And it definitely felt like a continuous culture from from the 90s till now. This is the same club that when you look up above where the players come in, there's years and years of MLS Cups on the wall.
Hey, I hate to say it, but I got to hand it to my man Phil Anschutz.
Yes,
man knows how to own multiple soccer clubs.
It's his name on the trophy.
Has he gotten an ambassadorship yet? Surely that's in the works.
I think he's probably aged out of that circuit.
He's
he also wasn't.
Did he get one last time? I don't know.
Well, he was never engaged to one of his sons or anything. So
I honestly vaguely feel like he might have been an anti-Trumper.
Really?
Possibly. Because he's
maybe
real
early on, but I think,
okay.
He's really on the moral majority tip.
Right. He was one of the guys who was a bit more sincere about the Jesus stuff.
I see. Yeah.
I guess, but also, AEG is first and foremost a concert and entertainment
spreading Satanism amongst our children.
To bring about the end days,
Right. Exactly.
But I think they also use Home Depot Center as a concert venue in a way that Red Bull Arena is not used.
Well, and his whole thing, Anschutz's whole involvement with the league, for the first, decade, 15 years or whatever, was basically making it an arm of AEG.
Yeah.
And part of that was having all the new stadiums, including at one point, potentially RBA have those stage setups. And it was just, one of the ways to, appendage the league to something more substantial economically.
Good timing.
The league was struggling.
Good timing you bring that up because apparently that's the plan with Sports Illustrated Stadium.
Yeah, let's finish talking about the game first.
So after those, I will say it was tough after those first 2 goals, but that goal back from Nealis was just a huge release. And I think you felt it in the stadium, just kind of the tension kind of release out. And it was really, it was quite loud and everyone was really into it.
We were watching a vlog of someone who traveled there and we saw the goal celebration. And I think Cork, you said, it's subdued, but in like an appropriate way for the.
But still loud because there were still like
It was
2,000 people.
fans.
Yeah.
Everyone was where I was sitting. It was hyped. I think that guy might have just been overwhelmed, but it was loud. Everyone was like, "Let's get back into this," and that actually there was like a huge jolt of energy into the team after that. I think right after that, Harper had a good chance, like down the wing. I think it was kind of like not a great angle, but he did hit it hard, and McCarthy had to make a really good save to keep it out. And then there was, I think, after the set piece, maybe even from that chance was then the Isle chance, the Noah Isle chance, that I think it was maybe a few minutes until halftime, but I think that chance and that save kind of like brought the momentum down a little bit, unfortunately. But yeah,
He did. Yeah, he like one timed it and it one hopped into the goalkeeper's arms.
yeah.
And I don't know, like I think it was the right move to hit it first time. And I would have been much more frustrated if he like tried to finesse it and scuffed it. But yeah, it was disappointing that we couldn't get something more out of that. But
I feel like if he had scored that, we could have won this game. Like the momentum had shifted. Like Galaxy were on the ropes for like maybe 5 minutes there. Like it felt like they were on the ropes.
And I feel like you could see the outline of a different sort of game and different path to victory for them here. If like they didn't have that first 15 minutes where they were a mess, and then they probably a pretty good chance to nick a goal like the one that Nealis did over 90 minutes, no matter what.
Yes.
And then if the question is just like keeping a clean sheet, and I do think we saw the most quality since we played Columbus in terms of constructing a chance together. That said, the first two goals, I think, are very clearly the team being shook and like out of sorts and spaced on the wrong places on the field, rather than like everyone being where they're supposed to be and just not being good enough. So in that sense, it's a little bit disappointing, but and it's something that you can point at the last minute scratch as like the direct cause for. That said, LA also had Puig out entirely, and like it was a case where like over this playoff run we finally did not have everything go right for us. We finally had one thing go wrong, so it's like, well, you can't feel aggrieved that one thing finally went wrong.
That is so true. Like this felt like the first match of the entire playoffs that literally like we didn't score early. It just everything just didn't fall.
It was the first time we
place.
conceded at all.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, I mean, Columbus we
Except
did.
since
The Columbus game. Yeah,
But
yeah.
But still.
Well, and just to maybe bookend the like Galaxy RBNY just kind of comparison chat that we're having, I guess it's worth commenting that like, and this is like part of what's been interesting about this Galaxy team and why they were such an interesting opponent is that like guys like Peck and Pansel and some of these guys, this is their first year on the team. This is not like this is like a core that's gelled together for years and years. They just kind of went out and signed some good players in, kind of purposeful roles they were looking for and went out and fucking did it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you always hear, from this club year after year that, it's development. We got to wait and, build and all this kind of stuff. Got to see what the young talent looks like or whatever. Whereas, LA just went out and did it this year. And it was an interesting quote from LA's sporting director, Will Kuntz, after the game. Or, I mean, actually, this might have been in one of the previews, like kind of preview articles that somebody wrote up before the match, but it was him talking about Red Bulls. Kuntz was, and saying, discussing the opponent in the final and saying, just like they're a bunch of, local players and, young players who have been playing the system for a long time. And it's all about development. Another interesting part of this quote was that he credited Marc de Grand Pré, as opposed to any of the technical sporting directors, which after all these years of being told de Grand Pré doesn't have anything to do with the soccer decisions, that was an interesting little note to see. But also, again, to get to the point of Kuntz saying, "Oh, Red Bulls are all about about development and they're good at it and da. I don't know, man. I kind of like the way you do things a little better. I kind of like your way of doing things where you go out and find fairly established quality pros and plug them into your team.
I mean, that
rather than
midfield-
just play the lottery with 8 million academy kids every year.
Well,
Yeah.
even if it's like pandering, maybe.
Yeah, it was obviously a pandering answer, but still.
Well, not for him. I meant like for us. Even if Jochen Schneider's pandering, he also seems to kind of acknowledge that to some
Right.
extent, where he's like, "Oh yeah, I realize in this league you need experience and leadership."
Yeah, I
and-
mean,
Well,
like,
he's got to show it.
Yeah,
Talk
exactly.
is-
right.
Jesus.
Yeah, like
Right. But it's like, that is kind of like, if he's mentioning that as like his go-to, and obviously we have rumors about like old guys coming onto the team soon enough, but like if that is maybe the rhetoric, like I feel like this postseason was an exercise in getting me to once again watch a regular season of the New York Red Bulls.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it also leaves more room to have a guy like Joveljic as well, who was a younger player who they signed from like Wolfsburger, not like a big club or anything, when he was a pretty young player and now is turned into their main man. And honestly, if you look at Joveljic's profile, career trajectory, it looks kind of similar to like a Patrick Klimala type player that they brought over when they're young, but then they continued adding pieces around him instead of like looking at his initial season in LA and saying, "Oh, you only scored 2 goals."
you must
need
not
to-
just not want it. Like,
yeah,
like,
exactly. Or it doesn't even necessarily have to be Klimala. It can even be like, if you like Manuel or if you want to go further back, even just like finding a diamond in the rough like Bradley Wright Phillips, like that becomes easier when you have Thierry Henry and
an actual structure around it.
rather than sort of like forgetting how you found those guys in the first place
And
expecting them to
that
come
goes
up.
for like the academy players too, who are
Yeah.
just kind of being thrown in arbitrarily without any actual kind of expectations and bars to hold themselves to. It's just kind of like they're throwing them out there to just see what they got rather than expecting them to be part of a functioning team. And I think that's just so much of the disconnect with RBNY, where, to go again to Kuntz's quote, where it's like, yeah, they're good. They're on development. They're focusing on development, but you also have to bridge development with having a functioning first
Yeah,
team.
to what
and that hasn't happened in years at this club, and including most of this year. So,
It was
a
just-
lot remains to be seen.
Yeah, I was just telling like the midfield that LA put out without Puig was
Still had like MLS veterans.
like Cerrillo and
Marky Delgado.
and Brugman. They worked together as a unit so well.
And they still had Diego Fagundes off the bench.
Right,
Guys
yeah,
off the
like-
bench, and just like that whole midfield, even without Puig, like the roles were very clear how they were going to play.
Right.
Like one of them was marking Forsberg out of the game. Cerrillo was able to push up ahead, like on the I guess it was the pencil goal when he just had that great touch into just blasted through the gap between Stroud and Edelman and the back line. Like, and yeah, Stroud and Edelman, it's just like, with what's his face, the Uruguayan, Carballo. Yeah, sorry. With Carballo out, it's kind of like, I don't think either of them really knew what they were doing out there for the first 20 minutes. It's kind of just like those big holes in the midfield. It was just, they got
You
played
could
around.
see that they were thinking a little bit slower than
Right.
the way that LA's midfield did too.
Yeah.
We mentioned this briefly last week, but I also think the Maya Yoshida signing is the kind of signing Red Bull used to make all the time. That we've done.
Zubar, Paranel.
Yeah, and something like
Olave.
that would
And
be
Yamane was really good in that game. Their right back, he was really good. And he's like a veteran. He's played in Japan for a long time. I was reading. He's like 30, but he's really good. I think he's kind of another like low key, really good signing for them this year.
30 is a good age for a professional athlete.
Yeah. But yeah, like to Cork's point, they made like a ton of really great signings this offseason that filled very specific like holes in their squad, but they had like they had an idea of what they wanted to do, and the game plan was extremely clear throughout this whole season.
Meanwhile, our first little gesture towards being a more kind of like competitive, serious club and having more veteran players this year was a lot more of a recent LA Galaxy thing where just have like, Chicharito or Zlatan, where they just signed Forsberg and basically nothing else last offseason. We're just like, oh yeah, that's our big improvement.
Yeah.
That's all we needed to do.
It was telling like how low key when Marco Royce came on the field. It was kind of just
not
like
even mentioned this whole episode.
Yeah, it was just kind of like whatever. Like he looked slow. He looked out of it. Like, and it kind of like he's like, yeah, the main guys are Joveljic, Paintsel, Peck.
Well, and just more to the point that LA has like layers of dependable guys, and they're not all expensive guys.
Right,
they're not all like A-list like celeb signings.
Right.
But you do have to go out and find players who fit your roles, who have proven track records in those roles, and we just have really not been doing that.
Yeah.
A lot of just taking flyers on every single one of your signings is not a winning strategy.
Yeah, and it does, like, you look through the Galaxy squad and it's like, oh yeah, there are a lot of players here. Like in the sense of like, I could see you could make an 11 out of a bunch of these different guys and it would be coherent and it would work. And like you look at, I was looking at this might be jumping ahead again too, but you look at the 18 or whatever, the squad for us, and it's like, there's a lot of like guys on that squad. They're like, okay, I understand maybe the like fiduciary reasons for this signing or whatever, and it's just like, but like, what are we trying to do here?
Is this actually improving the team? Like, it's just a collection of assets. It feels like here a lot of times.
And like looking at LA, looking at how they play, looking at that, there's like
building a team.
There's like big idea there, and the idea is to win. And having Donovan out there, having like Joveljic do that keen celebration, like that has been like kind of like, they've had these blips of like, oh, we're just going to kind of be Galacticos for MLS, but like Galacticos like won a lot of stuff and they've won a lot of stuff, and there's still kind of that kind of like mentality, I feel like. So in a way it was like, okay, I think everyone after the match was like, okay, if we're gonna, like, I'm glad we lost to LA in a lot of ways. Like, okay, at least it was LA, at least they're serious, and like,
it was they morally won.
Yeah, and like, okay, we matched up against that. And I think that people were almost like, and to what you were talking about, Cork, like, I feel like there was a lot of like, okay, maybe we're back. Maybe this could be, or not back so much as like, let's use this as a springboard. Like, we lost to a serious club, a good club. We didn't embarrass ourselves. Like, the second half was pretty even.
It felt good to be on that stage with them, and like with seeing the broadcast talking about both of us, like, as they had to pretend that we were equals, they did call us the underdog, but like, it felt
and we
good.
were.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure we were, but we also didn't play. We weren't, after that first frolicking in the first 20 minutes, we didn't play. We weren't scared,
Not at all. And I like, to Cork's point, I think too, like, it shows that this offseason the Red Bulls could go out and just add some guys and have them gel over the offseason or the first couple months of the season. Also, it should be plainly apparent to everyone now that the Red Bulls, if they have a slow start to the season, that's okay. We had 4 months of this season where the team was absolutely worthless, that's been another trend. Even when things were going well, like the team just really slow walking any sort of integration of the squad of any new players.
Well, I also wonder if, like we've talked about how meaningless the regular season is unless you're in a shield race, but how much sharper the team could have been if they were in some kind of competitive, battle throughout the season. Like steel sharpens steel, and we've been really just going up against paper, or like not even needing to sharpen ourselves.
It was odd, in retrospect, it was odd how, sharp, as soon as we were in the playoffs and like playing for something, how sharp the team became. Like
they woke up.
They woke up. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean,
woke up from the regular season.
Granted, of course, like I'm maybe conspiracy theorist in the sense of like maybe Sandro thought, no, I have license to actually try and win soccer games now that I'm in the playoffs. But
I literally said that last week.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I joked that Sandro was sandbagging the regular season.
but it's like, okay, I have
mean,
the chance
well,
to actually.
no, I
try
think
and-
the point we're making is more that like the regular season is for the fiduciary elements of the club and
Yeah.
showcasing the assets and
Yeah.
putting everything in the shop window. And then once the little playoff tournament starts, they're gonna
Go for it.
do real politics.
Remember when Struber showed up only for the playoffs
my
in
God.
2020?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's an
He
interesting
technically
point.
started in
Yeah.
2020.
that is so bizarre. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. But I will say as well, just on the theme of like signings and everything, like I think it's been pretty clear over the course of the season that we are, mild skeptics of like the Forsberg signing, to the extent that like, yeah, sure, he's a quality player. Does he merit the sort of attention or seriousness the club has gotten for signing him? Not really. That's a bit of a mystery to us. He did disappear for a lot of the season or just didn't play. That said, I do think that his presence on the team is a
Needle
factor
mover,
in
yeah.
like getting the team to wake up and be more serious and
Yeah.
try to like
Yeah.
push forward. I think if this is still a squad of predominantly like 23 to 27-year-old guys, like I don't know if that happens.
Admittedly, we look better when he plays.
Yeah, even if he doesn't look good.
Yeah.
When he's
Yeah, I was
playing.
gonna. Yeah, not a glorious game from him.
No, he was very
isolated,
anonymous. I
yeah.
mean, they definitely had a plan for him.
But the whole team kind of felt like a little bit, it's like we were going up against a team who had a plan a little bit,
Yeah,
and it
for
didn't
sure.
really
For
feel
all
like
of
that.
our forwards.
Yeah.
Really.
Yes, they definitely.
But speaking about like that kind of thing, here's a name older Red Bulls fans might remember is Dennis Yengor.
Wow.
God.
That is a good example of what you were saying too. I think it's a good point that like looking at the LA roster, you can mix and match several viable lineups, and with ours, you kind of have only one. Right. And like back in 2018, we could do that too. Now looking at ours, it's like, oh, we've got a guy like Dennis Yengor who can like play, I guess, one position that we have him play for like 30 minutes at a time occasionally. But that's it. You've got a couple guys across the pitch who are like that. Really, you've only got like Morgan and Forsberg and maybe Van Zer, who you could like imagine playing a couple different roles across this team. Other than that, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, even like who that makes me think of is Dylan Nealis, like in the sense that he looks fantastic in this 3-man backline as one of the outside center backs. In the like, as soon as he kind of figured out Painsel's like how he was constructing his runs, and like watching Painsel play off ball is actually fascinating. Like
If you're a striker, you should watch how he runs.
yeah, like he has good speed. He's literally not the fastest player I've ever seen, but how he times his runs and how he sets up his defender on his run to get in behind was amazing to watch.
The way he runs diagonally is like,
Yeah.
like it's extremely intelligent, and I'm
Yeah.
sure it's just instinctual too for a guy like him.
Yes, but Dylan figured it out actually pretty well, and like he was able to work with Harper and direct Harper and Stroud to contain him after the first few minutes. So after those first 20 minutes, like, and yeah, he just looks good. But like, if we go back to the 4-2-2 setup,
Or any four in the back.
any 4 in the back setup, it's like
He's not really a
he's-
right back.
He's not a right back. He's not a center back.
He's not a wing back either.
Yeah, it's just like it's tough.
He
you
is
know?
a third center back.
Yeah,
Like that's
exactly.
his position. Just like how Dante Van Zer is a second striker.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And even then, like, we don't really play like a traditional second striker would,
right.
even in our 4-2-2-2. But yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, it just only goes to what you were just saying, Brit, about like, we have a lot of like pieces, but it's hard to put the puzzle together. And then we have like a bunch of guys in the squad that are there, like we've been talking about, for like fiduciary reasons.
Like Emil Forsberg.
And I think we can pivot to thinking more about like, the future next season, because I do, like we said a couple times in this podcast, it does feel like, oh, maybe this is an opportunity for us to be back, for like the pivot in sort of club attitude or a shot in the arm that the club really needed.
I will say though, if I could, just the feeling after the match was one that I think was really great. Like people were I think there was a little bit of a contingent of the crowd of the fan base that was like being almost like
A crank.
well, it was just like kind of like putting on the airs of like being disappointed New York sports fan. But I think that was like partially like, oh, I have to act like the 50-year-old fans who've been here since the 90s.
They're Mets posting.
Yeah, exactly. They were doing Mets posting in the parking lot. But the attitude, I think, of everyone was like, this was a blast. This was so fun. I think everyone wants the feeling of like good times back, that we're desperately kind of like grabbing onto it about this playoff run and about this matchup, that like it would be just so sad if the club didn't build off of that. Because yeah, you could see like there were thousands of people there. Everyone was like in a great mood. Like after the match, we went to a few bars and stuff, and I was talking with some of the other fans, and we were all just like reminiscing about like kind of like when we got into it and like all that stuff. So it was like really fun. I feel like everyone there had some like story about why they were there. So
You kind of need a story to be a Red Bulls fan.
exactly.
In general.
Yes. No, seriously. Yeah. It's not like a Miami or City fan or something, like everyone there had like a story about
Someone
it.
took me to a game.
Yeah, I was like, I went to the '94 like Italy-Ireland match at Giant Stadium, in the World Cup or something. Like I was literally talking to guys like that, and it was like it was really fun. But yeah, it's like there's something to build on here. There was like a reinvigoration. I feel like a lot of people that is really cool. So
I also like to bring it back to us going to Legends. Like, yeah, it does feel like there's this disconnected community of people who have either fallen off or lost interest, but also still have the loyalty to this team.
yeah, it's not hard to get back into it for sure. So
Yeah, I mean the scene at Legends was definitely kind of like interesting for me. If it felt like it was like, which is to say, it was like a positive experience. I mean, it was the first kind of like real kind of critical mass moment, honestly, for me at least, as far as just it felt like a big mass event in New York City, that there was like a few hundred people packed into this bar for a Red Bulls game. It wasn't just like a niche crowd of randos and just gadflies and stuff.
It wasn't
was
just
like,
the basement.
yeah, and it was like a mass group of people. Like this was the biggest sports thing happening in the city today, and
interesting.
That had more power to it, even in a loss, than the more kind of niche, kind of Red Bulls gatherings over the years. So, like again, which is to kind of piggyback on what you're saying as far as just like build on this moment, see where the momentum goes.
Winning heals all wounds.
Right.
Seriously.
So Red Bull Arena has officially been renamed Sports Illustrated Ticket Stadium.
No, just Sports Illustrated. Stadium.
Just Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, because
Stadium.
Sports Illustrated, you don't have to differentiate from the magazine and the ticket company, because the magazine basically doesn't exist anymore.
And here I just learned that they have a ticketing company.
Yeah.
I actually
Apparently, New England have been using it already. What? Yeah.
Well, I just hope that when you get there, it's actually just a 8-minute rambling TikTok from that one Sports Illustrated author who just tells those rambling stories. Who's the guy who wrote the Mets book?
Oh, Perlman.
Yeah. It's just Jeff Perlman being like, guys, this one time I was interviewing this pitcher and he had this hat, man. And this hat, it was so yellow. Like you've never seen a yellow hat that looked this yellow. And I was in Georgia at the time, and then I was driving to North Carolina, and the hat was so just that for 90 minutes.
The bathroom stalls are going to be lined with 90s Rick Riley columns that would never be allowed to be published today due to their political correctness. But
Too woke.
Yeah.
It's a long deal. It's like a stadium deal. It's
not for a stadium deal.
Well,
really.
it's still 13 years.
13 years.
That's
which
pretty
is-
short for a
right,
stadium.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's still like, is this a new like? Could
Most
we
of the times when stadium deals are shorter than that, it's because the company dies. Which this one,
That's true.
we'll see.
Crypto.com.
Well, it's like, is there a potential that we might use this to springboard into a new era?
I mean, it maybe. I am discouraged though, because we haven't actually spelled it out quite 100%. I don't have the press release with me, but I think I can paraphrase the general idea.
I've internalized most of the crypto stuff.
It's like Sports Illustrated ticketing is like a new ticketing platform. I don't know how it's going to interface with the fact that infamously we have to download the accursed app that has Ticketmaster on it, and you have to set a password every 15 minutes of the match. I don't know how that's going to affect it. But anyway, Sports Illustrated, I guess, is now a ticketing platform. And every ticket that we have is going to also double as an NFT.
Oh my God.
Because it's still, when were NFTs a thing? 2020, 2021?
In addition,
The long 2020.
2021.
Sports Illustrated Tickets, which launched in 2021 and offers primary and resale ticketing, will become the Red Bulls' primary ticketer following the next MLS season, making Sports Illustrated Stadium the first venue in the world to have 100% on blockchain digital ticketing. That means each fan's ticket will be an NFT, essentially a living digital artifact that can be altered even after the fan scans the ticket to enter the game. That could mean greeting messages from a favorite player loaded onto the NFT ticket, a message or offer from a sponsor, or a post-game highlight. Each Sports Illustrated Stadium fan will receive a digital Sports Illustrated magazine cover from the event that they attended. Well, I mean, if there's one complaint I have about all this, apps and Ticketmaster and tech nonsense we've been doing the tickets through the last few years, not enough ads. Not nearly enough. I mean, thank God Sports Illustrated is going to come in and
Step in.
bless us with the ads that we've been starved of on our ticket system the last few years. Thank God for them.
They're also flatly lying. The first company to bring technology breaking blockchain technology
Blockchain.
to sports was Navix News.
Navix.
Remember?
Oh, yes.
Never forget the snitch, Navix News dog.
I know.
That's an age
Disappointment.
some of the older Red Bulls fans might remember.
God.
I've been trying to say that for 15 minutes, and once I got to it, I tripped over every other word.
Wow.
But we got there. We finally got
I just want to know, as a 9th year season ticket holder now, how many slurp juices I can apply to my tickets.
Yeah. But seriously though, I think it did sort of end the good vibes of the week to be returned to our regular scheduled programming where we have this sort of absurd deal. I mean, there's the one half of it, which is NFTs and crypto is stupid.
And environmentally nefarious if you want to get real.
The other half is that even if you don't think that, NFTs are done. That's not a thing anymore.
That's 2021.
Have we been negotiating this deal for 4 years?
Probably yeah. That's probably what happened. Also, it's very telling that this company started in 2021 when the NFT thing was happening, and clearly they just have not done anything else with it. It's also very odd to me that a company like that, probably just some private equity guys or some venture capital guys.
Oh, it's particularly demented that it's not only is it a weird, kind of awkward name just from an aesthetic sense, but it's also that it's not only that it's zombie Sports Illustrated, but it's a zombie of what was actually a respected and kind of worthwhile institution that's just become completely gutted the last few years and turned into a complete, monster of late capitalism. Honestly, when you put it all like that, probably the perfect sponsor for this club these days.
And it's just it's so odd to me.
It's and just one more point on that. It's there was something I mentioned earlier in the season. I can't remember what the specific kind of story or dynamic we were discussing this with, but there was one point during the season where I mentioned that something, MLS has just become kind of a giant pile of money that nobody really cares about or feels should have any dignity, as opposed to other, sports leagues where, there's the traditions and culture for the fan bases that for years and years have kind of protected it from having any sort of kind of undignified, crap like this happen. Meanwhile, MLS is just this giant pile of money that a bunch of owners have parked to hopefully grow into profit for them. In the meantime, they don't really care about the sport itself. So they don't really care about the dignity of selling it off to be fucking NFT stadium, to be the first blockchain ticket stadium in the world. Where the MLS and Red Bull's, more enthusiastically than most MLS clubs, are just a laboratory for all this really stupid and I think just
grotesque,
bad for society shit. Yeah. It's just ultimately just the coarsening and just, moronification of society that through a deal like this, the club that I, would like to identify with is totally signing up for that whole
at the
thing.
forefront.
Yeah. So,
I mean, like I think it's particularly like you had mentioned earlier about how stadium naming rights being shorter often could mean like it, at least it's not like crypto.com arena or whatever.
it's not far off.
It's it's
maybe
not.
it's worse in some respects.
But it's like you had mentioned, kind of like, companies failing. And it is remarkable to me that this 2021 company that did just kind of a fashionable thing to hop onto the NFT train decided to spend whatever kind of like investment it did get on licensing Sports Illustrated, which, won't help. They could have just called it like Ticketo or something, right? So like it on that front too, it's like beyond the gross, obviously, like co-opting of a legacy name to become this weird crypto scheme. It's also like, why does this company exist? To like what's the purpose of blockchain for ticketing? Like paper tickets were enough.
Don't ask that question too many times or else you'll get in trouble.
I think that the point is that our apps weren't crashing often enough before the matches. And this is just a way to ensure that we up the downloads for the app on the App Store as we
I'm sure the same people that turned Sports Illustrated into AI written like bot articles are going to be really looking after the consumer in their ticketing department.
I am kind of looking forward to receiving my Sports Illustrated cover with like 18 fingers on each player.
Yeah.
I really was wondering, like, how can I make it so my phone is also a hand warmer?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll just like blow up my
How much electricity is being made to generate New York Red Bulls tickets?
Yeah, it would be funny if just the first match of the 2026 season, it's just thousands of Red Bulls fans standing outside of Sports Illustrated Stadium, just waiting for the AI generated ad video to load on their screens.
Well, unfortunately, we have to wait an extra year because it's not starting until 2026.
Next year. Yeah, next season. The season after next, just
guys,
like
I can't get in the stadium. My graphics cards are not farming enough crypto.
I'm just disappointed that I can't get a a Zoo Books digital magazine instead of this. I wonder if we could get highlights or something like that instead.
Ranger Rick.
Adbusters Stadium was the runner-up.
They probably got a bid from that fake Enron coin. R.I.P. Enron Field.
In 2028, when we inevitably go to Hawk-Tua Stadium somewhere.
Yeah. That will be one of the prestige brands at the time.
And Red Bull New York will be the first MLS club to have a fully Hawk-Tua stadium experience. First stadium in the world.
I mean, look, this might be the one time where if City pulls the Costco guys, they might have the moral victory on us.
Yeah. I mean, like, honestly, at this point, I'm only like 80% joking. Like, it does feel like Mr. Beast Stadium has entered the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Beast coin arena at Harrison Field or something like that.
On the Logan Paul pitch.
I do think though that, like, to bring us back a bit, like, yeah, there does seem to be an opportunity to like reset the club vibe. If you're listening to the podcast 2 months ago, you're well aware of how sort of checked out and cynical, well, maybe not cynical, but
only
how checked out we were.
Only half of us have season tickets anymore.
Yeah. And I like the episode after the NYCFC game, we were sitting here and like gaming out like, okay, like here's, a timeline where like the club whittles away into nothing and maybe they consolidate the two clubs into one to each other. And like, we weren't like trying to be funny. We were actually just thinking like the period of time where there's two New York soccer teams seems to be closing. Maybe that's still true, but regardless of the new stadium opening up in Queens. But like this cup run has changed the mood around that a little bit and like suggested an alternative trajectory for this club. In my opinion, the trajectory should ideally still involve Red Bull getting out at this point. You know, like they're no longer, they haven't for quite some time showed any aptitude at running an actual soccer operation. Their business side seems to be a little confused as well, and has been pursuing, frankly, quite tacky and minor league sort of partnerships, punctuated, of course, by the stadium deal that we're talking about now. The general operations are also very sloppy, you know, with the exception of all of the away tickets purchased for the playoff run was a well done and expensive move. That was good on their part. That is a loud exception I'll make. But you know, you do also have to wonder what the future is with Red Bull, because like this naming deal that got announced is happening at the same time that there's consistent rumbles about them potentially, you know, them renaming one of their two F1 teams, and like whether they need two F1 teams.
They did rename one of their two.
They did rename one of the two F1 teams, but like that was another case where like they couldn't make up the team is being renamed twice in 2 years, and this is like a $1 billion operation. Maybe not the smaller team.
It was Visa Cash App RB, and now it's Visa Cash App Racing Bulls.
But beyond the specifics, the bigger idea is that they were with like a like hundreds of millions of dollars operation. They could not get it together to like decide on a strategy for multiple years, and they've renamed twice in 2 years, and it's unclear what they want to do with all of these huge bits of business that are in the portfolio after Mateschitz is dead, and that still applies to Red Bull New York. So I think personally that like this club, this playoff run has suggested a better and brighter future for this team, but that still probably involves Red Bull getting out at some point, because it does not seem clear to me that they really feel invested, even with like signing Jurgen Klopp to some sort of
consultancy.
Yeah. To run over things. You know, I'm not convinced. And I think that there is a possibility of jumpstarting this club again. I didn't think that was true 2 months ago, but I think some pretty significant changes are still needed for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely fans that were at the game in LA who've been there, you know, from the start. And I don't think a change to the ownership will be good for the health of the club, but I don't think they should be worried, like, if they change ownership that anyone would leave, you know, in this perspective, like, oh, if Red Bull's not owning this team, I'm not going to be a fan anymore.
just Derek.
Yeah. So
that would be a very funny type of guy, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
I was only here for the energy drink.
Exactly.
What would the energy drink soccer show be named if they sell, you know?
Well, maybe they'll be the energy drink FC. And they'll just energy drink soccer will buy the club.
Energy drink soccer show is actually not named for Red Bull or anything like that. It's like how Superman's logo is actually like an icon in his language. Energy drink soccer show is just a connection of glyphs that happens to resemble the English words energy drink soccer show, and that's how we pronounce it.
Yeah, just phonetical in our human tongue.
Yeah,
this is like a rival or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Please, Todd Bowley, save us.
Honestly.
I don't
Chelsea
know.
are in second.
Well, we'll figure it out later. Any other parting thoughts on the MLS Cup before we head
we'll
out?
probably do a roster episode maybe next month, I
Yeah.
guess.
My closing thought is definitely Mexican hot dogs are quite good.
Mexican hot dogs.
Mexican hot dogs.
How are those different from?
They got bacon wrapped, and they have all sorts of like pico de gallo and cilantro and stuff on it.
Interesting.
I think that the ladies who sell the churros outside of RBA should hop on
Move
that
on
train.
to that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Seems like it needs a little bit more.
And they all took Venmo.
See,
which is nice.
That's why we have international friendlies, cultural exchange.
Exactly. I'm the Englishman going to San Siro in the 90s.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm my last word is that I'm holding up a glass of wine for Corey Burke.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Pour one out for the the big guy.
I thought you were going to say you were holding space. I'm holding space.
I'm holding space.
I'm holding space with Corey Burke.
Someone hold my finger.
I'm taking Corey Burke and really holding space with that.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted
I've
to
seen
do.
it. I've seen a few posts. I've seen
You
it.
know, I work in soccer media, so you know I've seen a few. But.
Seen too many. Too many posts.
Are they really?
Well, with that.
It's Alex.